Welcome back, everyone, to the first Utopia Experience live stream of 2025. We're excited to be here live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. My name is Sheldon Price. I'll be your moderator for this session. And today's session is on picture perfect events, diving into a photographer's playbook. And to talk more about this topic, I have two amazing guests to introduce to you. As usual, our host for this session is Joey Goone. He's the president of Utopia Experience.
Hey, that's me.
Yeah, that's you.
Unbelievable.
Utopia is a full-scale event company specializing in AV production, videography, event planning, and under Joey's leadership, we've become, a trusted name, not just here in St. Louis and Missouri in general, but all across the Midwest, from producing events from California to New Jersey, everywhere in between. Joey's also right now a big sought-after speaker at industry events, getting on stages, a big active member of Entrepreneurs Organization, super passionate man about creating unforgettable experiences and raising the bar for events of all sizes. Joey, it's so good to be back on a live stream with you.
Thanks for making it happen, Sheldon. Woo! You do so many things behind the scenes, by the way. Just want to send all that love and the compliments back to you and just recognize all of the work that goes into securing badass guests like Myrina. I'm so excited to have you here today, Myrina. And we have a lot to talk about. And Sheldon, thank you for all the things that you do behind the scenes, keeping these conversations going, because I think our community really can benefit from the people that we're bringing on. And that's thanks to you and your team. So tip my cap to you all.
Thank you so much. Yeah, our marketing team is all about connections, about connecting us with more and more people, spreading the Utopia love, and bringing in amazing guests. Like our guest today is Myrina Renaissance, a visionary creative powerhouse in the world of photography. You're the creator of Her Eminent Reign and the owner of TJS Photography. It's this event photography company she founded in 2017 right here in St. Louis. Inspired by her late father, she began her photography journey at just 10 years old and has since built this incredible career. During the pandemic, she opened her own studio, even began forming an agency of freelance photographers that handle assignments for events, galas, conferences, and she's captured massive moments for high-profile clients like Kamala Harris, Coldplay, Janelle Monáe on national, international stages.
That's so freaking cool.
And beyond just that, like these amazing professional accomplishments, she's also a proud wife and a proud mother of 6 beautiful children, and her company's initials are named after the eldest 3 of those children. So Myrina, welcome to the live stream. We are incredibly excited to have you here today.
Hey, Sheldon. Hey, Joey. Y'all make me feel so special. I'm sitting up here like, wait a minute, accolades. Okay,
girl. No, take them. You've earned them.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so these are 2 incredible guests for today. As always, I'm going to jump out and let them talk. But for you, anybody who is listening along, watching along, if you have any questions for these 2, we have a Q&A. Pop them, send your questions into the chat, and we will bring them up for Joey and Myrina to be able to discuss as we go through this. But I will let you 2 take it away. We are talking today, with Myrina, an incredible photographer, about how why hiring a professional photographer is important, how to kind of plan and budget this in event photography, and what pre-event coordination looks like, capturing content at events, the entire strategy. So Myrina, Joey, take it away.
Thanks, Sheldon.
Thanks, Sheldon.
Myrina, we have so many things to talk about in so little time.
I know, right?
Okay, so it's pretty obvious that photography is important, right? Everybody's like, yeah, I get it. Like photography is important. But I think that what I'd love to do is give people a deeper look behind the curtain as to why. And so Nicola Kastner, she's someone that I admire and follow on LinkedIn. And a couple days ago, she had this post about, are you in the events business, which is focused on task lists and logistics, or are you in the business of events? The business of events, the key distinction there being that when you're in the business of events, you look at all the different sort of elements of an event and how they can play into your much larger marketing and business strategies overall. And I think photography is one of the most powerful ways that you can do that if it's done super well. So that's what I'd love to talk to you about. But before we delve into that, can you just give everybody the backstory? So you started out in, by the way, I very much resonate with that. I started out as an entrepreneur when I was 9 cutting grass, and that's a story for a different day. Today's about you and your story. But I love the ambition and the courageousness and the boldness of you being a young entrepreneur. Take us back and then maybe give us, a little bit of context in how you got that, how you started this company, and then how you ended up doing, how you ended up shooting for people like Kamala Harris. Give us the full picture there.
Well, as Sheldon said in my bio, I started with my dad. So my dad was what they call the picture man. And so the picture man in our culture is the person who's at the clubs or at the events, and he would take pictures of people on this backdrop, print them out, put them in those little folded cards, and you get it to go. And so we used to not go in the clubs, but at the events, we used to be we used to help him photograph. We would help him do the prints. He did weddings. He did, multiple different things, more so in the event arena, not necessarily portrait photography. I never did that with him. And so, believe it or not, I actually did not like photography when I was younger. And I think a big part of me not liking it was because I didn't want to work. I just wanted my daddy to give me money, and I wanted to go shopping with my friends, hang out at the mall. Don't make me work for it. Just give it to me. And so I actually stopped doing photography, and I picked it back up in 2017. I had been fired from my job, let go, and I was just like, okay, I don't want to continue to be a dependent on, a job to secure my future and my financial stability, with especially being a mom. And so that's kind of where I was like, let me just tap back into some things that I know. And I picked the
Mm,
camera back up. So when I first started doing it, I was just really focused on trying to learn it all over again, understand what it is that I like to shoot, build a portfolio that people could trust. I think I was charging like $50 for a photo shoot, but hey, needed to make a little bit of money, but also needed to, build and learn. And so that's kind of where things, started for me. That's when I became Renaissance, the creative that people see today. It's basically a rebirth. That's what Renaissance means. And then that's also the company name is TJS Photography, but it's LLC, that's Renaissance TJS. So Renaissance is the rebirth of me, and then TJS is the name of my three eldest children. So I just started shooting and, getting out there and just really putting myself in a position to understand what I wanted to be shooting. So at first I was shooting everything. I did weddings, I mean, not conferences, but events, portraits, family photo. I did it all. And every once in a while I may dibble and dabble with some of the other stuff for people I love and for favors. But I have really kind of niched myself in the creative portraiture and creative event photography market. So that's where I'm at today. Now, how did I get Kamala? I don't even know. These people found me on Instagram, and then they sent me a message, and then they called me from my Instagram, and I was like, is this a scam? What? They were like, oh, well, we're looking for someone to capture a high profile client, and we want to know if you're available. The same day that they needed me to capture, I had a commitment to Janelle Monáe in Atlanta. So I was like, whoever this is not more important than Janelle. So the answer is no. And so she was like, oh, well, do you want to know who it is? We're really needing someone. And I saw your Google reviews, and I was like, all right, who could be bigger than Janelle? Entertain me. When she said Kamala, I said, is this a scam?
I would
I
say the
said
same
no.
thing.
Then what's your name again? So I started going on her LinkedIn, trying to find her on Facebook just to verify that this is a real person that I'm talking to. They want me, of all people in St. Louis, to shoot Kamala. So yeah, that's how that happened. So
That's so awesome.
I hired a team. I was the main photographer. I had a backup photographer, and then I hired a company to help me with the lighting situation. Because literally, as soon as I was finished with Kamala, I dr- sped down the highway to the airport, hopped a flight to go shoot Janelle in Atlanta the
Mm,
same night.
that's so awesome. Good for
That
you.
was crazy. I know, with my kids.
Love that you're able to take your kids on the road with you and do your work with your family.
Yeah,
That's super cool.
yeah.
Hey, so take our audience, they're event producers. Take us
Mm.
through the things that matter most when it comes to thinking about photography and perhaps some common mistakes that organizations make when budgeting for a photographer like yourself.
So, okay. The main thing that I noticed that is a huge area of opportunity for organizations when they're looking for photography is that not all the time do they have a shot list. Not all the time do they know what they want shot. Not all the time do they understand the story that they want told, right? So, they'll call and we'll talk about what's happening. And let's just go with the conference, for instance. Every conference has its own theme, its own way of delivering the information. But for the most part, it's pretty standard, right? You have breakout sessions, you have keynote speakers, you may have a vendor hall, you may have, a couple other little things sprinkled in there. But when we're capturing a conference, you're typically going to capture some of the same things, people inside of rooms and keynote speakers. Well, when you create a shot list, for me, when I think about what the audience is going to see, for the people who weren't there, for the people you want to try and engage to come to next year, you want to think about the story that you're trying to tell to them. Yeah, we can capture all day millions of people being in one room. We can capture those things, but what exactly is the core of the mission and the reason behind why this conference exists? And so when you start to think about that, then you can work through, okay, what should a shot list look like? Um, Sometimes depending on the photographer that you hire, you may get your, people that can capture it and make it look beautifully. But then you sometimes I get hired because I have a different type of look. And so I really go and lean into the creative side of things. I get into the details, right? The things that people who may have attended the event may have either missed, or some people who are putting the event on took time to put effort into, is those details. So such as like putting art on display from local artists or local performers, and they bring out a band. What does those angles look like? I mean, we can capture the front of the stage, but what does it look like if I'm behind the stage capturing the audience reactions with the band in the forefront? Like things that aren't necessarily they aren't really vocalized a lot of times when I'm speaking to clients. So I would
Right.
definitely encourage getting to the gritty of what's the mission, what type of story you want to tell, so that when you get ready to share it, you have some captions and some things you can kind of roll out on a slow roll to continue to carry you through, the immediate, the interim, and for the next conference that's coming down the line.
For sure.
Those are some things that I would definitely, and I forgot your second part of the question, my bad.
It was the budget,
Oh
maybe
yeah.
some things that common mistakes that they make when they think about budgeting for a photographer. And I too, I have something that I think might play into that, in that, if you don't mind, if I just briefly share,
Oh, go
because
ahead.
what you just shared brought something up that I think would be very helpful for someone who is in
Yeah.
conference planning mode right now to just reflect on and perhaps think about. And it's that key distinction again between, are we, I think the some photographers might come in and just do exactly what you said, Myrina. They might come in and shoot the keynote and the breakouts, and they come in and do a good job. But then you have people like yourself that are super creative and passionate about thinking about the event as more of a business than
Hmm.
just a thing that they have to come in and capture. And an
Hmm.
example of that comes to mind, like one of the most creative ways I've seen this done is 30 days worth of sponsor highlights. So we attended an event and the photographer did a fun photo shoot with all the sponsors, because we asked the conference host, what are your key objectives? And they're like, we want to make sure our sponsors are happy because they help bring this event to life. They help underwrite the whole thing.
Yep.
So we want to double down on those relationships. So what did the photographer do? The photographer took professional photos of each individual sponsor being their silly, authentic selves. And then afterwards, there was like this sort of archive of all these fun, authentic, cute photos from the event. And the organizers posted these, and it was like 30 days worth of, here are the people that make the event happen behind the scenes. And that was 30 days worth of promotional content to highlight not just the sponsors, but to also promote the event itself. It was like,
Yep.
here are the personality behind the brands that sponsor this event. And so it was like dual purpose. It was highlighting the sponsors and their
Definitely.
personalities, and it was highlighting the conference organizers in this really cool event that they're putting on. And it also highlighted the photographer for their creativity. So when I think about the business of events. I'm thinking about stuff like this.
Yeah.
And I know that working with creatives like you're thinking about that stuff too. And I think that's the difference in working with a photographer that's worth their weight in gold versus someone who's maybe just coming in and doing the work and then going home afterwards.
You're right. And my last conference, I actually did a spin on something like that. And I was very intentional because I asked, like, who are the key players? And for me, the key players are people who are the people who underwrite, but then also people who are like in-kind sponsors, like just being sure to highlight those people as well. I love the idea that they brought about, like how they ended up using the content, which I know we could probably talk about this later, but I feel like that's a huge area of opportunity for many conferences. They don't necessarily know how to use the content once the content is captured, or
Mm,
they don't have ideas behind it. So having those things in mind before you even hire a photographer, when you're in the creation stage of the event, when you're in the creation stage of the shot list, having those ideas in mind of how you want to use the content inform us for how to shoot the content. So that is another thing that I definitely, man, huge. I love that you said that.
that resonates with me too, because we're like, what we're trying to do is be innovative on the audiovisual side of the attendee
Mhm.
experience and the sponsor experience. And so we're bringing lots of innovative offerings that you may have seen at events before, perhaps you haven't, but like a podcast booth on site and selling that as a
Yeah.
sponsorship. Content booths for people to actually walk in and record short form social media content. But then it's like we could deliver the content to them afterwards. But I think one of the bigger questions that they have is, great, what do we do with it?
What do you do
I
with
mean,
it?
I hear your point loud and clear.
Yeah.
People need to know how to repurpose and repackage that content in a way that serves their larger promotional goals.
I even go so far as when I choose freelancers to go out to work, my expectations for them include deliverables such as don't send more than 85 photos from the day. So if I'm giving that as a deliverable to my freelancers, that means that I have to have a pretty good idea of what my client wants,
Mm,
because then that helps them to be intentional with shooting. So then when I get ready to sort and cull to give the client the finished product, they're not having to go through a million photos just to figure out, okay, well, which photos should we use? Because that's really overwhelming. And I don't know if all companies have a content person or a social media person. Some of them do, some of them don't. But
yeah.
if you're relying on people who have to hold multiple roles within your organization, then making it easy for them to digest this content and this footage for them to share is the best thing you can do for them. One thing that I've noticed is when I'll shoot a conference and then I go to kind of do my recap for my company, my recap and the way that I create the content looks completely different than the way the company may have done it, right? And that's pretty standard, that's normal. But what would be nice is if, in those conversations, those pre-production conversations, we're talking about how this content is supposed to look. That way, if somebody does see content footage from my site and content footage from your site, it looks in alignment, even though they're the same picture. Right. So that to me is like, okay, how do we bridge those gaps? And I've been trying with conferences, like, when I'm following up on leads, I'm following up on leads 6 months, 7 months in advance. I already know that you're already in the planning process. You're already talking about things like that. So start thinking about your photographers and the story that you want to tell in the beginning phase of your planning process, because we can help you curate and mold the way this is supposed to look. You put all this money, energy, and time into making it look a certain way in person. You want that to reflect online, because that's where you know what I mean? That's where
Yeah.
your engagement, your money is online.
For sure. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it's such an opportunity too, depending on like the keynote speakers and the sponsors. Like there is so much power and network equity of
Yeah.
like, hey, Myrina, we have these really amazing 5 keynote speakers. Can you do a behind the stage headshot or what? Like offer them some type of like
Yep.
extra offering as our VIPs, and then you're
Yep.
able to turn that footage over to them as a sweetener and be like, hey, by the way, we know you speak at a lot of events, but this is the event where you actually got professional stills that you could repackage. And then
Yep.
they get to thank you as the
Yep.
conference organizer. You're paying them to be there and you sent them away with this gift. of
Yeah.
professional headshots that Myrina and her team. I love the
I
idea
literally
of,
call it a mini photo shoot. I have mini photo shoot sessions with the big people, you know, like the keynotes and stuff. I have
yeah,
mini photo shoot sessions with them, and it's so fun.
I love
It just adds to the experience.
it's not just shooting the event. There's
Yeah.
so much more opportunity. Okay, so what are helpful ways then, Myrina, for clients to communicate that vision to their photographers? And by the we have 9 minutes left. I also want to get to like anything else that you want to talk about that we haven't talked about.
Helpful ways. Call me months before your event is about to start happening. You know, I have a
That's
lot of
fair.
conferences. The last couple of conferences that my team has been hired for, people have called us like a week, 2 weeks before the conference, and we're sitting up there scrambling like, and but then once they call us, they have all these ideas, and it's like, okay, to try and implement something like that, you need to have called us way before then. I'm going to do what I can because I'm a creative, you know, I'm going to bring out what I can, but that's not going to always, you know, I do try to manage expectations. So that's number one. The number two is to have essential people who will be hands-on content only in the calls. Sometimes people like to bring director of marketing, comms, event management plan. They have 50 different heads of things that want to be on one call with the photography and videography team, and there's a lot of mixed messaging that happens, you know, through that. And
Yeah.
so just designating certain people to communicate the content goal is going to be the easiest way to streamline that process. And then, like I said, having some sort of shot list, like outline and foundation that we can work with, and then we'll help you sort and cull and you know, refine it the way it needs to be refined throughout the process. So those are the three ways that I would definitely say is better to communicate. You also asked me about budget earlier, some things to consider. You want to not only consider the amount of time that, you know, we're going to have people in the field. You also want to consider, let me just say this. I'm gonna break it down easy. There's three phases to this. There's pre-production, production, and post-production. All the three of those phases are going to be very important to us getting you to the final, you know, the end result of giving you great product. So if you break it down, whenever I send out proposals, I break it down in just that. What is it going to take in pre-production phase? I'm meeting with you. I'm scouting the location. I'm probably walking the location several times to get a thorough understanding. I'm then inviting my team who I've hired to come out to do the same thing. You know, so there's a lot that happens in the pre-production phase. Production phase is when I'm out and I'm in the field. We're now delivering. We're executing on the vision that you all have. We're making adjustments as we need to. Maybe there's a Discord, maybe there's a group me that we're communicating in, maybe there's a group chat, but having a clear communication channel with those heads of people that I mentioned earlier is going to be very important as well. Then we have the post-production phase. So now I have my editing team who's color grading, ensuring that everything looks very consistent for continuity purposes, on brand with you all. And then, you know, we're sorting, we're culling, we're doing all of these things. So when you're thinking about a budget, keep those three phases in mind. Even if you don't quite understand all of the details that go into that phase, just know that those three phases are part of the process. So, you know, aggregate your, you know, put your budget together based on that, and then find out what's comparable in the area. Not every place has the same rates. You know, LA, hiring a photographer in LA is probably not going to be the same cost as hiring one in St. Louis or other major cities. So, you know, definitely seeing what's out in the field.
Are there that's super helpful. Are there specific event spaces or setups that make it harder to capture photos? Like I know you talked about like being on site and doing
Yeah, like
site visits.
convention centers are, you know, they definitely make it a little bit harder because they're so big. So, you know, and I learned this last year because that was my first time my company got hired to do a convention center. We're going to put a golf cart on reserve for our team anytime we got to do a convention center, because you have multiple breakout sessions, multiple activations happening at once. We need to be able to get where we have to go and do so swiftly. So, you know, heck yeah, give me a golf cart. Something to work with.
Duly noted. Any organization out there that can bring Myrina in your convention center conference, put a golf cart on the list.
Put a golf cart on the list.
What about the difference in like shooting different events of different sizes? So we've talked a lot about
Mhm.
corporate
Yeah.
conferences, masterminds, and summits that maybe have somewhere between 500 to maybe 4,000 people. What about smaller events like nonprofits that do fundraising galas? Um, a little bit about, if you could talk a little bit about that and maybe how the process changes or how to try and make it more economical for those charity-based partners.
Yeah, I
Anything you can
would.
share on that end.
Honestly, the foundation that I laid for a conference is pretty much the same. We still go through that same process, pre-production and then post. We still go through that same process. But one of the things that I really like about nonprofits is it's very intimate. So a lot of times, I probably only need myself or just one photographer throughout that whole situation. But who are you talking to, right? A lot of times nonprofits and charity-based events, organizations, they're talking to multiple people. They're talking to the people who they serve. They're talking to the people who are donors. They're talking to other organizations that may partner with them. So when we're thinking about who they're talking to, in my mind, when I think about that, I'm thinking of how intimate do my images need to be. And it really, like, I'm zooming in on the people who may have tears in the corner of their eyes. I'm zooming in on the people who may be hugging and showing love in those moments. I'm zooming in on the triumph and the joy that people may be exhibiting for any of their accomplishments and achievements. Those type of shots really touch here. And so that's where you start to see the money roll in for these organizations. Branding and imagery is powerful. Those are that imagery alone brings people in. So when you want to tell a story, and I'm thinking about just like galas and stuff like that, I'm going to tell the story for what's happening the day of that event, but I'm also going to tell the story for what's next. And so when an organization is looking to hire you, encourage them to think about what's next, because a lot of times they do have some type of plan. They have a concept of a plan. It may not be all the way thought out, but they have some type of plan. So have them tell you what that is.
That's a perfect transition and segue into these rapid fire questions I want to ask you. We've got
All
like
right.
3 or 4 minutes left. If we go slightly over, it's cool because I think there's so much value in these next questions. So let's rapid
Okay.
fire them and see how many of these we could pump out because these are the best questions yet. I'm looking at the
Okay.
questions Sheldon's adding and has prepared, which your thoughts are like continuing to stimulate new thoughts and ideas and questions in him. So here they go. What's your advice for event organizers on how to use photos after the event to promote their cause?
Depends on the social media platform that you're using, but I would definitely encourage like carousels. I would encourage photos along with wording that kind of gives some statistics, things of that nature.
What types of shots work best for social media platforms? Is it like a certain type of shot, a certain type of imagery, landscape versus,
Oh
versus or
man. Well, I would definitely go with close and wide. Those are really nice because it's right in your face and they show up really beautifully on the phone and it makes people kind of study the image. If you do wide and there's group shot, then definitely still bring it in close, but then also, allow for there to be some type of action within the shot.
what advice do you have on organizing and categorizing event photos so that they can be easily accessed and reused? Do you have like a
Oh, definitely.
go-to storage
Definitely.
platform?
I use SmugMug. That is my gallery, what I use. But then the way that I would definitely encourage a lot of organizations who end up sending us their like drop boxes and stuff is to do it by day and then also do it based on the category. So if it's a breakout session, if it's a keynote, if it's specific activations, vendor, that type of thing, break it out into category.
Mm,
First day, then category.
love it. What's a lesson you've learned from working with high profile clients like Kamala Harris that people you think out there could benefit from hearing?
Make sure you don't have nothing on your record. Because Secret Service don't play.
That's great.
Oh
Okay,
man.
fair.
But okay, but for real, that's definitely one. But then the other one is to try and bring as few of as not as much equipment, right? Trying to keep it as condensed as possible, just because you have metal detectors, you have things that they want to search. If you're around their high profile clients, they want to ensure their safety first. So just making things easy, you're on yourself. Don't bring as much with you.
Yeah, for sure. One of the interesting things too that we try to do in our company, and actually Sheldon could speak to this because he used to plan big expos for the company he used to work at, and we always go through their like riders and their contract, like when we're working with, celebrities or staff members that we're bringing to an
Mhm.
event that have riders and contract, like we read everything line by line. Sometimes they're just trying to see like, did they read line 117A where we said green M&Ms? And it's not for them to be difficult. It's more for them to see how much you actually care about looking through the fine
Yeah.
print, because if you're intentional about that, then they're like, okay, if they're intentional about that, then they're going to be intentional about, meeting me on site and making sure that, you know, uh, Sheldon, maybe you could jump in and speak more to that, but, or, we don't need to touch on it. Either way is great.
No, yeah, you're absolutely right, and I think it trends to something. What you were saying here today, to kind of like wrap it up a little bit. There's so much that is going on behind the scenes of planning, big, small events, but it's conversations as early and often as possible, so you can understand everyone's objectives and get on the same page. And you, as a photographer, are trying to, like make these objectives happen as well. And so that you're working with these high profile clients. They have a list of like very particular requests, I'm sure, that you're like, all right,
Every
but
time.
I've got to play ball because I've got to make it happen for you. And it's all about that flexibility. But like you also mentioned earlier, you can't have that conversation a week before the event and drop that on a photographer. Like, you're creative, but
Yeah.
you're not capable of like pulling off the impossible. It takes months,
Yeah,
to sometimes plan these big events.
that's true. And my question is, do you want the creative or do you want standard?
Mm.
Because I can give you both and I can give you one or the other. But the difference between one and the other, a lot of times creative, now we get into IP, which I did a TED talk about ownership of your creativity and authenticity. Now we get into that. So if I'm going to come in and I'm going to bring my artistry into your space to really give you something that feels elevated, what type of contract, what's in the lines of the contract, right? Because
Yeah.
eventually I'm going to want to share that, because that is my personality, that is me. But then I can give you the standard stuff that you asked for, because I know how to shoot that as well. So both of them are still high quality. It just comes with, okay, which one am I going to be able to leverage this side? And if I can't, is that in the fine print that will keep me from doing this, but more so lean more into, the standard high quality stuff. It makes a difference.
No, absolutely. I completely agree. Yeah, and there's
Mhm.
there's so much you talked about today. I mean, we could keep asking questions. I know we need to wrap up. So I've dropped a ticker in the bottom. This is ways that you can reach out and connect with either Myrina or ourselves, the Utopia team. And I'm also going to drop people's socials in the comment section of LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. So if you want to follow either Joey or Myrina on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, make sure to check the comment section and follow them. Reach out if you have any questions, because I think as we've learned today, like, photography is something that needs to be baked into your conversation early and often, so that you can
Yes.
all figure out and build a story together. Branding and imagery is powerful, but you have to like talk to your photographer to build it together.
100%. And
I
you can
really
also
enjoyed
book
this.
me whenever you want to.
I really, really enjoy this conversation.
I did too.
I love your creativity and the energy that you bring to your, your creative pursuits and your career, Myrina. Just glad to know you. Grateful for you. Thanks for coming on the LinkedIn Live.
Thank you so much, Joey. I appreciate you, Sheldon. This was awesome.
Thank you. All right, and we are going to wave goodbye to everyone.